when I first opened the door to her house when I was meeting her parents, when I was standing outside the door, that's when it hit me. I'm like, oh damn, like this is about to happen because now the cameras are about to be in my face. And then I was like, just relax,
Yeah.
just focus, it'll be great.
Yeah.
And then the door opens, like she opens the door, and there's a camera like to my side, there's a camera in front of me, and then there's like a camera up on the stairs.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Your Life Unfiltered podcast with your host, Kipto Kothari and Deepam Jain. In this podcast, we dig deep into the life experiences of our guests that connect the dots between their early upbringing and what they're doing today. Today we have a very special guest, Aashay Shah. Aashay, do you want to quickly introduce yourself?
Yeah, what's up everyone? My name is Aashay. Thanks Deepam and Keto for having me. I know this is a hectic schedule for both of us, but I'm glad you guys were flexible and we were able to make some time. But yeah, no, I'm Aashay. I was on season 2 of Indian Matchmaking, and I live in New York, and I'm here to talk about whatever these guys want to talk about.
But before we go into it, I did want to just put a plug out there. If you guys are not already connected to Your Life Unfiltered on Instagram and on YouTube, please be sure to give us a follow and subscribe. And with that, Deepam, let's go.
All right. So Aashay, before we talk about Indian matchmaking or whatever is happening right now, let us go back a few years. Talk to us a little bit more about your early childhood, early upbringing. What was that like? What kind of environment did you grow up in? What are some early inspirations, motivations, and maybe try to connect with them? What you're doing today?
Yeah, so I was born in India. So, I was born
Mm-hmm.
in Vadodara, in India,
Yeah,
and then,
so,
yeah, represent. That's right. And then, we'd been to the States, like me, my parents, my brother, we'd been to the States before on multiple occasions back when I was like 5, 6, 8, 10. And we always ended up
Mm-hmm.
going back because my dad, basically, we came here to see if my dad wanted to practice here in the States versus, stay at home and practice back home. We came a few times and, he took the bar exam. He did all this stuff. He passed it, all that good stuff. But then ultimately he decided to, his heart was back home. So he decided to, just take all of us back home, start his own practice back in Vadodara. And, fast forward to when I was about 11, my parents asked me if I wanted to come to the States for, better education. And, every time I've been here before, it was all, spending summers with cousins, having all the fun, going to like, Disneyland and, just all the fun stuff that you do as like a
Mm-hmm.
6-year-old. And I was like, yeah, sure. I'd love to go to America. And at that time, my brother was only 6. So my parents decided to send me here to stay with my uncle's family. So my dad's brother's family. So, they decided to take me in along with my grandparents who were already here. They told my parents, they're like, why don't you send one of your kids here? We'll take care of him. We'll put him through school. He'll have a great
Mm-hmm.
upbringing. So then my
Mm-hmm.
parents, thought about it. They asked me if I wanted to come to the States for education. So then I agreed. And then I was on my way here. My dad came with me to, drop me off, kind of make sure I was, settled in, acclimated. So he was with me for about a month here, and then he went back to India. And then at that point, I was here by myself, but with my uncle's family. So then at that time, I suddenly started feeling the absence of my parents and my brother, right? Because then you're like, oh, damn, like I'm here by myself now. Like there's no, my parents aren't here.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I had cousins else was here. So then, I was very lucky because my uncle has 3 kids. So, I grew up with them in the same household. He brought me up as one of his own kids, and I never felt like lonely. I never felt the absence of my parents. They never let me feel that absence. So I grew up in the Midwest, in St. Louis, and then I went to undergrad there. I went to high school there, and then I went to optometry school in Chicago for 4 years.
oh, okay, wow.
Yeah, yeah. And then I moved back to St. Louis to
Mm-hmm.
practice because I had family there. I had, my nieces, nephews, they were there. My friends were there that I grew up with, went to undergrad with. So I spent about 9, 10 years in St. Louis after optometry school. And then the pandemic hit and, everything was closing down. Everything was just kind of, in shambles pretty much, as you already know. And then, St. Louis being a very small city, there was not much to do there, especially during the pandemic. So then, all my friends were getting married, they were having kids, they were doing their own thing. And so I started feeling that I really needed to make a move because I wanted to move to a big city like Chicago, New York, LA, Atlanta. I wanted to move to one of those cities for a long time. So then I think the pandemic kind of was a blessing in disguise in that sense, because it really forced me to just go ahead and make the leap. And I didn't know anyone in New York, but I applied to multiple different places. Like I applied to places in LA, Austin, Chicago. New York just gave me the best opportunity for work. And so then I decided to just make the leap and move over to New York in about, a year and a half ago, in August. Yeah, I moved in August of 2021.
Oh, wow. So it's pretty recent then.
Pretty recent, yeah.
Okay. So I have to ask this question because my sister-in-law is from Chicago and my brother and I are raised in this area, right? New Jersey specific and not necessarily New York. But which do you like better versus Chicago versus New York?
So I like Chicago better because Chicago's cleaner and it's, it's definitely cleaner. And, it's not as congested and crowded as New York, but it still has everything that you need as far as, like social scene is there. The food scene is there, obviously, as you already know. But New York, it's a whole new world, right? New York is like, when I remember the first time I came to New York, I don't remember if it was LaGuardia or I think it was LaGuardia, but at the airport, when you go down like the escalator, there's like a banner that says like 18 million eyes on you or something like that. Something to that extent.
Oh my God.
And, it's just like 8 million people, right? And then it's like, all of a sudden, that's when it hit me that I'm in like a big city, one of the biggest in the world, right? Because coming from St. Louis, it's 3 million people, including like the metro, like the suburbs. It's like 3 million people. And downtown has like 500,000 people. And then, going from that to coming to New York, which is like, 5 times as big as St. Louis in population. And then you throw on top of that, you got the 5 boroughs and, throw on this, it's just a whole new like universe out here. So I definitely felt that I was in a big city, and I definitely felt that this was like the right place for me, just because I wanted to be in a big city. So I'm like, after Chicago, this would be I'm glad I made the choice to come to New York versus Chicago. But yeah, I definitely like Chicago better because I also have a lot of friends and family that live in Chicago as well.
That makes sense.
So kind of in that sense, it feels more like home than New York does.
Yeah. Well, and it's also less expensive in Chicago too, right? Compared to New York. I agree with you on most things about Chicago. The only reason I like this area better, New Jersey, New York, and all that kind of better, is because there's less snow. And I know we get snow here too, but it's just less in Chicago. Chicago winters are brutal.
Oh, I agree, 100%. That's the only thing I hate about Chicago. Like the winters, I hate.
Windy city. It's always windy as well.
Yeah, it's really windy.
In the summer, they have like fireworks cruises where every single night during the summer they let off fireworks right by the that river that runs through Chicago. So Chicago's a really cool city, especially in the summer. It just the one thing that would prevent me from ever living there is the fact that those winters are so brutal.
That's the only reason I didn't stay in Chicago after school, because I'm like, I remember it was like one time it was like May, like middle of May, and it started snowing in Chicago.
In May?
In May, yeah. It was like second week of May. I was in school and it started snowing like I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like it's insane.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I quickly want to go back to one thing you said before. So you started your optometry school in Chicago. So tell us a little bit more about that. Did you do you always want to be in that profession, or do you just happen to fall into it? Like, how did that happen?
So I didn't always want to be an optometrist. So, growing up, you hear, Indian parents, like typical, stereotypical, doctor, lawyer, engineer, right? My dad's a lawyer, and he obviously, he wanted me and my brother to become lawyers. He didn't push us. He wanted us to ultimately do what we wanted to, but he was like, it'd be nice to, pass the family business on to my kids. So neither of us went into law. We both went into, like, my brother's a pharmacist. And then, so I was actually, during undergrad, I was very lost. Like, I'm like, I don't know what I want to do. I'm like, my parents are back home. I better do something of my life, or else, I'm gonna come across as like a huge failure, right? So, in my parents' eyes and my grandparents and my whole family over here's eyes. Oh, sorry. So I just played around with a bunch of stuff like pharmacy. I took the pharmacy like entrance exam. I failed miserably because I'm terrible at standardized exams. So, any of those tests like ACTs, SATs, the pharmacy entrance exam, I do terribly on those because I hate standardized tests. So then, I was just, it was like sophomore year of undergrad, and then like junior year came around, and I'm like, damn, I still don't know what I want to do. So then, one of the summers, I was just, looking for jobs in the summer just to kind of, make some extra money. And my aunt, she took me around to just kind of fill out applications and stuff like that. And she's like, oh, why don't you go apply at this private practice at this, seems like a good thing to make money right now. And it was so I'm like, okay, fine. So I go in there, fill out an application. They wanted to hire me as like a tech. So, they do all like the pre-screening, they do all the, they take insurance for patients and all that stuff. So I did that for like a good 6 months. And then I started really, taking interest in what the doctors were doing, like behind the scenes, like doing eye exams and stuff like that. Right. So I just straight up just asked the doctor, I'm like, look, I think this interests me. I feel like this would be a good profession that I'm really interested in that. Can you mentor me? Can I shadow you? Can I come in on a day that I'm not working? Maybe I can come in and watch you do eye exams. Maybe, you can kind of take me under your wing. And he's like, absolutely. So, super nice guy. To this day, he's still one of my mentors that I look up to. So yeah, he took me in. He started, making me do less of like the insurance stuff. He made me do more of like the science, like technical stuff. So he took me into his office. He used to, after patients were done, he would actually stay after all the patients were done after a long day. And he would just sit down and just explain everything to me, like kind of like what he was doing. And then, that really piqued my interest. So then I decided to apply for optometry school during my senior year of undergrad. And then he wrote me recommendation letters. And, one thing led to another. And then I took the entrance exam, and luckily I did really well on it. And I got accepted to the school in Chicago, and then that's it. That's how I got into optometry.
Yeah, wow. That's interesting.
Really interesting.
So you almost fell into it in a sense, because like you happened to be working at the right place at the right time to find the right mentor to inspire you to get into optometry, take an exam, and then ultimately go to school for that. So that's pretty cool. For sure.
Yeah. It was fate, I thank my aunt for, even taking me and forcing me to go in, because I'm like, nah, I don't really want to do that. And then she forced me to go in, and she's like, yeah, you're going to apply here, at least fill out an application and then see what happens. And then that just kept the ball rolling. So yeah, one thing led to another.
Great. So let's switch gears a little bit, right? Let's talk about, your experience in New York, because you came from a smaller city. Outside of that first day, what's been some of the stuff that you really enjoyed about the city? What's some of the stuff you dislike about the city? And think about it from like multiple perspectives. Think about it from like entertainment, the food scene, the East Coast culture, all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, culturally, like East Coast is way different than the Midwest. So, that was definitely a culture shock. And, people in the Midwest, they're known more to be like on the friendlier side, and they're more like easygoing and just more laid back and relaxed. And I came to the East Coast, and I remember the first day I had to work basically like a couple of days after I got here, or pretty much the next day after I got here. And I borrowed my boss's car to drive around to work, because I was going to different like sites, like different offices to work. And the traffic was just terrible. I'm like, I'd seen it before when I came to visit New York in the past, like in Manhattan and stuff like that. But living in Brooklyn and actually driving, it was really, really like, I'm like, what is this? This is crazy. Like, to go like 2 miles, it takes like 20 minutes. Yes. And during like morning rush hour, I'm like, this is crazy. This is terrible. So that was definitely, So that was really bad. And then I didn't know that you couldn't turn right on red in New York when I first got here. Because everywhere else you can turn right on red. Even in Jersey, you can turn right on red, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, you can. It just depends on if they have a sign or not. If there's no sign, then you can make a right on red. If there is a sign saying no turn on red, then you can't.
Yeah, it's the opposite in New York. So you can't turn right unless there's a sign that says you can turn.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So yeah, so that threw me off because I turned right the first time, and I'm like, and then I almost got pulled over because then because I didn't know that was a rule. So that was one thing, and then the other thing was just, yeah, people were just, they're very like, they mind their own business, like they do their own thing, they go about doing their own business. Um, so people were just, in a rush to get everywhere, and you hear that, you know, when you're not living in New York, and it's like, oh, people in New York, they're too busy, like, minding their business, they don't really worry about anything else. But then when I actually came here and experienced that, I'm like, damn, like that's actually true. Like legit, like people are really in a hurry to get places, which I understand. So that was actually it was a challenging part at first, because even like taking the subways, like I didn't take my first subway till about like 2 weeks into like moving to New York, because you look at Google Maps and I'm like shit, like this seems like it's very complicated. So I either just I drove around, or I just like took an Uber, and then eventually on a day off I'm like, you know what, I'm just gonna get on the subway and just if it takes me twice as long to get to where I want to go, that's fine. I'll just kind of mess around with the system and figure it out. And it turns out it's really, really easy. And it's very, very simple. Like it's very hard not to get to the place that you want to get to, especially with like Google Maps and things like that. So getting the hang of that was very, it's kind of tricky at first. But yeah, other than that though, I think it was very very much a culture shock for sure. And I remember like the first time the very first day or the second day, I got a ticket, $115 ticket for parking in an area that I because like when you're first here, like the signs were confusing. Like, sometimes it'll say like, oh, no standing. And then at the same time, it'll say no parking from like, 10 to 3 or whatever.
Yeah.
So I got confused, and, I got a ticket of like $115. So that was kind of like a welcome to New York type of, thing that they just, threw at me. But yeah, just like little nuances like that, just trying to navigate around those and trying to figure out like how to go about doing it. Cause I didn't have anybody that I knew in the city. I was basically doing everything on my own.
Right.
Oh,
So,
wow. You had no contacts here. Oh, wow.
no, I mean, I had people in like Jersey. I have friends that live in like Long Island. I have some friends that live in Manhattan, but none in Brooklyn.
Oh, I understand. Okay,
That
got
makes
it.
sense.
Yeah, and Brooklyn's massive. So
Yeah.
like, like it's not like you can just call someone and they can come and, pick you up or something, because it takes a long time to get to places
Yeah.
Right.
in New York, right? So yeah, so I was kind of had to figure things out on my own in a way, and then but I love the challenge. Like that's one of the things I love about like just life and just things in general. Like I love, like if it like otherwise I wouldn't have even moved here, right? If
Yeah.
I didn't know anyone, I could have easily been like, no, I don't want to move to New York. But I saw the opportunity that New York potentially had, and I saw that a challenge is a good thing, and I love challenges. Like I'm up for any challenge. There is. So I'm like, this will be fun.
Mhm.
So I took it in stride, and I kind of enjoyed the process, and it really got me acclimated, and just got me to go out and be social. Like even after work, like if I got off at work at like 7 and I was working all day, I would make it a point to go into the city and just go hang out at bars, or even go to I joined like these social like networking events and
Oh,
stuff
cool.
like that.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, I would just go on their page every day pretty much, and see what's going on. Like if there's mixers going on, there's like events going on. So I would like go to those. I would go to all the mixers that I could possibly go to. And I just made friends that way, like in the city, and
Got it.
then just slowly just took off from there.
Yeah, that's
Awesome.
great. Yeah, that's
Awesome.
really great. It seems like you made really good use of your time here. You said it's been about a year and a half, right? It seems like you made a really good use
Yeah.
of that time so far.
Yeah, for sure.
Actually, that's a great segue into our next topic, which is the show, right? So talk to us a little bit more about that. How did you get started on the show in the first place? Were you looking for to get started in a Netflix show? Or are you searching for stuff online, or did they find you somehow, or like somewhere in between? Just give us a setup.
No, so honestly, I wasn't even planning on applying for the
Right.
show. So when I moved here, that wasn't even my intention. But so I didn't even apply for the show until like 3-4 months in, like after I moved to New York. So back home, like I like friends and family, they kept telling me, they're like, oh, it'd be funny it'd be cool, like if you go on like a show like The Bachelor or like some kind of like dating
Right,
show,
right.
right? So I would always like play it off. I was like, nah, I'd never do that. Like that's not something I would ever do, right?
Yeah.
And New York, and literally I was watching, I think it was like November or like end of November or something like that. I was watching football on a Sunday. I was just sitting around and I was scrolling Instagram, and then there's a page that I follow. It's called Desi Saturdays on Instagram.
Mhm.
I don't know if you guys follow that page, or do you know what that is? So it's basically they throw parties every Saturday at SOB in the city. So so I wanted to kind of that's another thing, I wanted to just kind of get to know people. So I joined that page to see what parties they were throwing, and then I might like go to a party here and there. And then on their page it said, one of their posts was, want to be on season 2 of Indian Matchmaking? Follow the link and apply here. So I'm like, you know what? I'm sitting at home, I'm bored. It'd be funny to just click and apply.
Mhm.
So I filled out the application. It took me like 30, 40 minutes, because they ask you like all these detailed questions, like really deep questions, like, oh, what are you looking for? When's your last relationship? What, name 3 qualities that you have, so on and so
Right.
forth. So halfway through, I'm like, I almost gave up. I'm like, this seems like a drag, but I'm like, I'll just go through and I just fill out the application, see what happens. I filled it out, forgot about it, and then I think like a month later, a recruiter reached out to me. They're like, oh, we received your profile or your application for Indian Matchmaking. We'd love to set up a Zoom call with you to kind of 45 minutes to kind of just talk about see if we can take this any further. So I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? At first I thought it was like somebody was spamming me. I thought it was like somebody was pranking me, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll go with it. So I set up a Zoom meeting with him. So he was like a outside
I
recruiter
see.
that Netflix. So I did like a 45-minute Zoom call with him. He's like, oh, this is great. I really liked you. Let me, can you send me a bunch of pictures of yours? And then I'll forward that to the network. And, they'll be in touch with you if they're interested. So I sent him a bunch of pictures of mine. And then like maybe like a few weeks later, I got like an email from the producers of Indian Matchmaking saying that they were interested in interviewing me to possibly be on the show. They liked my, the application and
Mhm.
stuff like that. So I'm like, okay, great. Let's set up a time. So I set up a time with them. I spent about I think like 45 minutes to an hour with it was 2 of the producers for the show. So I did a Zoom call with them, and then they're like, oh, we think you're great. We think you'd be great for the show. We're gonna get in touch with Seema Auntie and then see what she thinks, and we'll get back to you. But at that point, it was pretty much it kind of was surreal, because I'm like, is this really happening? Because I'm like, even then I didn't believe that they were from Indian Matchmaking. Even then I was like, this has got to be a joke. Like I can't, like I never would imagine like me being on like a global
Yeah.
Netflix television show, So even then I was still not very optimistic, because I'm like, oh, it's a fun process that I'm going through. If nothing happens of it, at least I got to, Zoom with like the producers, because then I Googled the producers, and they're actually in the credits of the show. So I'm like, oh wow, okay, so this is actually for real. So then like the process, like one thing, like step by step, it started getting more and more involved. So then I'm like, oh, this could actually happen. Like this could actually like mean that. And then eventually they asked me, they're like, oh, would you want to like a video call with Seema Auntie
Mhm.
in the next couple of days?
Mhm.
So I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? So I think that was like end of December, or no, that was I think around February, like end of February is
Oh,
when like video
okay.
called with Seema
Wow.
Auntie. So like probably like 2 months after me filling
Right,
out the
right.
application, to the point where I video called with Seema Auntie. And then yeah, so I spent about 15-20 minutes with her on video call. Super sweet girl, like a super sweet lady, like basically some like an auntie that you see at a
Right.
wedding, like just wanting to know more about you, just wanting to know what I'm looking for, my upbringing, things like that. So we spent about 15-20 minutes. It was great. And then I asked her, I'm like, what's next? She's like, I will, try to find a girl for you. It might be, it might be a week. It might be, 2 months. It just depends on when I find a match. Because, when you watch the show, it's basically, they were already filming the show months and months before I even applied. So I was probably like the last person to even apply to get on the show. So like I like snuck right in. So yeah, so that was, they pretty much set me up with Vero, which I didn't really know who they were going to set me up with when they told me they found a match for me. So they reached out like after Seamonte's call, basically after like a week, literally a week after, they reached out to me saying that they found a match for me. So at first I'm thinking, I'm like, oh, great. I'm praying. I'm like, please, I hope she's local. I hope she lives in New York. Because, I moved to New York. Also, another reason was so I don't have to do long-term or long-distance dating. Because I was very, very tough. Like in St. Louis, there's not many Indian people in St. Louis as far as like dating goes. So all my girlfriends that were Indian, when I lived in St. Louis, they were all long distance.
Oh.
So, I dated girls outside of the Indian like populace, but anybody that was Indian, that pretty much ended up being like Chicago or like, like New York or like LA or, places like that. So it just didn't work out, it just kind of fizzled out with those long distance. So I hadn't had luck with long distance until that point. So then I was hoping that it was going to be somebody they found that was local in New York, but they said they found somebody for me in North Carolina. So I'm like, okay, I mean, I'm like, I'll give it a shot, see what happens. There's crazier things can happen. So far I've gotten this far through stroke of luck. So I'm like, yeah, I might as well, I'll give it a shot. Maybe it's a girl that I really, really, fall for, and maybe I'll really hit it off with her, and maybe we'll continue talking. So then they're like, okay, we'll fly you out like this weekend, which was like end of March is when they flew me out to do our first filming. So then I didn't know anything about her. I didn't even know her name, to be honest. Yeah, they didn't tell me anything. No. So basically a week before I was flying out, they said, because until then I was doing all like these psych evals to like, they were kind of like, doing paperwork and all that stuff to keep me busy. And then probably like a week before, they're like, we'll send you her bio data. We'll have all the information for her. And then that way you kind of at least know what she looks like. So I'm like, okay, cool. So like the whole week goes by, I don't get anything. So I'm supposed to fly out on Saturday to North Carolina. Saturday I'm supposed to fly out. So Friday I text one of the producers. I'm like, oh, wait, am I supposed to get a picture of Vero? At that time I didn't know her name, but I'm like, am I supposed to get a picture of this girl before I see her, or am I just going in blind? Which would be fine with me. I wouldn't care if I went in blind because it'd be a cool experience. But they're like, no, let me send you a picture of her. And that way, like what she looks like her bio data and things like that. So I saw that literally the night before I was flying out. And then I saw that, I'm like, she looked really, really, really cute. So then I flew out, and then we started filming on Sunday. No, sorry. Yeah, Sunday. We started filming on Sunday. And then that's when I first met her.
Wow. Okay, wow. So it's funny because it sounds like it's very similar to the whole situation with becoming an optometrist, right? It's kind of, if you fell into it, it's like you just gave it a shot, you just want to see what's about, and it just so happened you were following the right page when you did a post about season 2 of Indian Matchmaking, that you got into the mindset of, let me give it a shot and see what happens, and then all this happened. So that's really cool.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I just took a chance and it happened. So yeah, exactly like you said.
Awesome. Well, how was your experience through the filming process? I know dating itself is obviously a nerve-wracking process. Were you like nervous at all, like, because you want to be authentic, but there's also camera watching you? So how was that experience for you overall?
It was still surreal for me when I actually, as the day came near, like of filming, I was like, I was actually more excited than nervous. I wasn't really like, I enjoy being in front of the camera. Like I don't mind that part. So I'm like, oh, that'll be fine. And then so I was more excited. So then I get to North Carolina, and then we're supposed to film on Sunday morning, and then I get to, so I didn't even know I was going to be meeting her and her parents. So the first thing that you guys see with me meeting her and her parents was my first time meeting Vero too. So I met her at the same time as her parents.
Wow.
Yeah. So the morning of like Sunday morning comes, and in my head, I'm thinking, I'm like, oh, on Saturday, I'm like, oh, it'll be like, maybe they'll have us go to a coffee shop and we're gonna, they're gonna film us like having coffee or breakfast or something and like a conversation in here, and then we'll wrap it up in like 2 hours and we're done. Little did I know that's not how things work. And so the morning of on Sunday, they messaged me at like an hour and a half before. They're like, oh, do you have time to discuss like wardrobe? We'll call you. I'm like, yeah, sure. So they call me and they're like, yeah, what you're gonna do is we're gonna pick you up and we're gonna take you to her house and you're gonna meet her and her parents for the first date.
Yes.
So I'm like, okay, yeah. And they're like, yeah, just bring a jacket with you. It's gonna be might be a little chilly because it's down on the patio. So I'm like, shit. Like luckily, like I overpack anytime I go somewhere. I overpack. So luckily, I had like a bomber jacket that like you see me wearing on the first, like on that when I'm meeting with her, with that black jacket. But it was still very cold. So I was shivering like the whole time. And then they're like, after that, you guys are gonna go. You'll go on a second date. So you can do whatever you want after that. You guys will go on 2 more dates on on that day. So they filmed like that. Like they filmed 3 dates of ours, and then like the same day. So they did the parents thing first, and then I did and then I took her on 2 other dates after that. So experience was great. Like so when I first opened the door to her house when I was meeting her parents, when I was standing outside the door, that's when it hit me. I'm like, oh damn, like this is about to happen because now the cameras are about to be in my face. So that's when the nerves hit me, like straight up just hit me. And then I was like, just relax, just focus, it'll be great. And then the door opens, like she opens the door and there's a camera like to my side, there's a camera in front of me, and then there's like a camera up on the stairs as I'm walking. And so it's like, it was kind of tricky, kind of hard to ignore the cameras at first, just because, there's 3 giant cameras in your face. And all you have to focus on is, trying to make a good impression, on this girl and then on her parents. So then we walk up the stairs and then, we go straight to the patio, and then there's like 3 cameras in front of me. And then there's one like in the distance inside our house. And yeah, they're all recording the whole time. So that lasted for about like to like a minute for me, like the kind of like the nerves. But then, I compose myself and I'm like, just be you. Like, because in the first 30 seconds, I'm like, oh, what do I say? What do I like? Am I walking properly? Am I standing up straight? Am I, looking at her? Like, am I saying the right things? But then after a minute, I'm like, you know what? It's not, fuck it. It's not even worth it. Like, just be yourself, because it's much easier to be yourself. It's going to come across as authentic and genuine rather than trying to think of making up something to say. And I mean, people can tell if you're being fake. Like, even if they don't know you, you can easily tell that like, that person's being fake. So I'm like, there's really no, like, either people love me or they hate me. I don't care. I'm just going to be myself, and whatever happens, happens. And then after that, it just naturally like the flow is just natural after that.
Okay. Yeah. I actually have one question. First question is, have you seen the show like after it came out, or are you one of the people that doesn't like to see themselves on screen? Okay.
No, I watched it.
I guess my question is, like, how would you compare, like, how it was portrayed on the screen versus, like, how it actually went? Like, do you think it was, like spot on, or do you think it was a little bit different?
No, for me, like, I'm very thankful. Like, I got, because, they do edits and things like that, and, production and stuff like that after the filming's done. So we don't get to see any of the footage that they were going to show you. So the first time you guys watched the show was, like, the first time we saw the show as well. So, and the first time I was very, like, I really didn't know how they were going to portray me, because, I was late to one of the dates, and, there was like a miscommunication. Like, it's just, so I thought it was going to be, I was going to be, me being late. I thought that was going to come across as, that people aren't going to like me because of that. Right. Because I think that's the only thing that I feel like I did that could have been like, oh, people aren't really going to like me for that. But I'm like, you know what? Some people are going to like you. Some people aren't going to like you. Because I got there and I apologized and things like that. But I just didn't know how much of that was going to make the cut. Because I explained to her as we were in the middle of the date, like what had happened and like the reason I was late. And I didn't know how they were going to edit that. Right. So thankfully, when I saw it, like I was very happy with the way that they edited it. I was very thankful that they did they they edited me like in the way that I hope that they
Right.
did that. Overall, though, I think they they portrayed me exactly like I am. Like I don't think there's anything that they did that I'm like, no, no, that's not me. That's not the real
Right.
me. And so I was very happy with the way they edited like my presence
Hmm.
on camera. And I feel like if you're being genuine and it's I think it's going to come across as there's really nothing that they can really they can't like make up words and like
Yeah.
edit words in your own mouth, right? Like like if you said something, that's something you said. That's not something that they can edit. They can edit the
Right.
angles and they can edit cut and things like that. But they're not gonna edit. They're not gonna make you like say things that you've never even said. So I was pretty confident. Like outside of that, I was pretty confident that I was gonna come across as like a
Hmm.
genuine, authentic character that I was, and I think they did fantastic when it came to that,
Okay.
for me at least.
So here's a question. Would you do something like that again? Not necessarily like the whole Indian matchmaking stuff, but like some reality TV type of show.
Like a
Or reality
reality
TV
TV
show. Not
show,
necessarily this one, but
or
I'm saying like would you want to do something like that again? Some kind of TV show experience.
yeah, honestly, I wouldn't mind. Like it's when we're talking about dating, I don't think I would ever do another reality dating show. Like if I ever even like got offered like they're like, oh, we want you to be on this reality dating show. I don't think I would ever do like a reality dating show. Not that my experience was bad with this. I had a great experience. I met Viral. We're dating and things like that. So it's great. They found a good match for me. But I think I don't think I would ever do a dating show just because I mean I don't really think dating shows like where I would want to do it again. Uh, like great production team, like
Hmm.
very, very professional. Everything I can't say enough like good things about like the producers and like the network, right? But yeah, I don't think I would do dating show. I might do another reality
Yeah.
show if
Got
that
it.
ever comes my way. But yeah, it's not. I think it's
Yeah,
just a
yeah.
way to challenge yourself. It's just whatever get keeps things exciting.
Cool.
I'd be okay to do
Awesome.
Cool.
Awesome.
to do that.
What is that one or two myths that you would like to bust about the show? Being on the inside now.
Yeah, one or two myths. So I think Simanti is actually very, very nice. So I think she's
Mhm.
very professional, and she treated me and Viral. She treated us very, very well. Like I have nothing bad to say about her. Like I know there's a lot of myths of her like from the outside that people see. They're like, oh, like she has a 0% success rate. She you know she's a terrible matchmaker. She's like no one that she's matched up has really worked out. And then to that I say it's not really up to her to
Right,
make
right.
the end goal work, right? So her goal is to
Yeah.
find a match for you,
Yep.
find two people that'll connect. And initially when they connect, she's done her job. Like if Viral wanted to go on a second date with me, third date with me, uh, because she liked qualities about me, and Seema presented those to her. So Seema
Right.
Auntie did her job because Viral wanted a
Yeah.
second date
Hmm.
out of me, right? So yeah, so I think of course I think in the Western world, in our side of the world, it's her methodologies are like they're definitely very well suited for like people in India because they're more traditional, a lot more Indian marriage like oriented, or arranged marriage oriented. I'm sorry, and the traditions are deeply rooted in within
Yeah.
the people in India, right? In America, they are, but I think the dating like methodology and the dating style here is different than it is in India. So like her style definitely like it's obviously she wouldn't be chosen for the show if she didn't have all the success that she had.
Of
If she
course.
didn't have a good track record, right? So I think she's great. I think she does her job. Of course, she's never gonna have like no one's perfect. She's not gonna have like everyone that she links up.
Of course.
They're
Of
not all
course.
gonna be successful. So I think that's one of the myths I would say is I would like to bust. And then I think another myth I would say, good question. Um, I think the way I think the way they portray people, I think it's just like I was saying earlier, like if someone says something, it is something that
Right,
they
right.
said. They can't really
It's not
deny that.
scripted, basically.
So that's something that
Hmm.
it's not scripted exactly. So because a lot of people they're like, oh, is it scripted? Like they're like, oh, were you like, were you guys acting on screen? Like how was? Well, first of all, it wasn't. We weren't acting. Literally, everything was. It was not scripted. They didn't tell us. They didn't tell us one thing to say that they wanted
Right.
us to say. They basically told us to basically say whatever the hell we wanted to, whatever came to mind. Just be natural and just let it ride out. Because they want to capture the authentic interactions between you and your potential partner, right? So they want to capture true, genuine connections between two people, and the only way they can do that is by not scripting it. So they, I think that's a big misconception and myth that people have, because a lot of people think that it's scripted, and it's not scripted at all. The only thing they might say is if they hear us talking, they're like, "Oh, why don't you save that for the camera and say it on
Oh,
the
okay.
camera,
Got it.
like on film,
Yeah.
so we can capture that interaction." So like if we're talking about like something like our past, like a childhood and stuff, the producer might come over and she's like, "Oh, that's good. Why don't you save that for when we're filming in about 10 minutes and ask her that same question."
I see.
So then we have to, I'd have to I'll ask her that question again and do that. But so that even that's not scripted. That's, they're basically just asking us to do,
Right,
like, say
right.
those things, what we said
Right.
earlier, at a different time.
Hmm.
And that's rare. Like outside of that, like they're like, yeah, just say whatever you want. Because you see like some of the interactions that you see on camera, like they're very
Hmm.
awkward and uncomfortable, right? So it's like how could this ever be scripted? Like they
Yeah,
can't
yeah.
script something like this, So yeah, so those are
Got
a
it.
couple like
Cool.
myths I would like to
Yeah,
bust.
Awesome.
thank you.
Well,
That's very
thanks for
interesting.
sharing
Yeah,
that.
I see that
Yeah.
it definitely didn't come across as scripted, because you're right in the sense that even if something is taken out of context, it is something that they actually said. So it's like the difference would be how much emphasis they put on
Right.
the specific words or phrases that were used, but they definitely said that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think you hit that right on the head. They're going to edit certain things to make it seem like interesting or dramatic, and for obviously for ratings, of course, they're going to edit certain things to make it seem dramatic or make
Hmm.
it seem interesting, right? Otherwise, it'll just be a plain, simple conversation between two people that no one wants to hear. They want to hear like the juicy, like the details, and like they want to hear like the awkwardness. They want to hear
You want to
like
make
stuff
it
like that
as
happen,
much as
right? So
like a soap opera
yeah.
feel as possible, because in general, people love drama.
Yeah, yeah. I think,
100%,
and this is probably
100%,
you might or might not
100%.
agree with this. I think it's probably happened in the case of Viral as well, and we've interviewed her as well for this part of this episode. So she
Yeah.
she
told me,
obviously was I think her personality was shown to be a little bit more like strong on the screen, whereas in person, obviously we spoke
Yeah.
to her and we
Yeah,
had
yeah,
lots of questions to her, and she definitely
Yeah.
was portrayed in a different light than she is in real life. So I guess that's
Definitely. Oh, for sure, yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, she's definitely, like you said, portrayed in like you said, like some people they're gonna portray them in like a maybe like a negative light, slightly negative light, just because they need like some
Right.
characters like that, so they might edit
Yeah.
like things a certain way.
Before we wrap, do you have any recommendations for our listeners? And our recommendation could be a book, movie, podcast, any piece of media, or could be general advice as well.
Yeah, Your Life Unfiltered, great podcast. Listen, guys.
I love it.
No, you guys were very professional. You guys were great. No, I think I've been trying to get a little bit more into reading.
I see.
I know
I see.
I don't really read much in general, but I want to start getting into. Not even like maybe novels, but I want to start getting into just like reading like books that like self-improvement books and things like that, because I don't so I listen to podcasts all the time. So I listen to a lot of I'm very like health oriented as well, so I listen I enjoy like healthy eating, like cooking meals at home, like working out, And I'm
I
very
see.
interested in like the healthy lifestyle. So I'll listen to like podcasts that are more like
Can you
health and
name one
fitness
or two?
oriented. Even like things. Yeah, there's
I
there's one
see.
called the Model Health Show.
I
No.
actually have. I've
It's
heard of it. I've
have
never
you heard of
listened
that
to
one?
it, but I've heard of it before.
It's really good. Yeah, yeah. So he talks about yeah, just stuff uh, like how to lead a healthy lifestyle, things like that. Like Ben Greenfield podcast is good too. Like he's out there. He's out there, but he's very educated. He's very good at uh, like trying new things. He's basically like a human experiment. He like tries everything
I see.
that he can probably get his hands on, and then he conveys that
Oh
to
yeah,
educate.
Joe
And of
Rogan
course, Joe
one's
Rogan is of course
amazing.
a great. Yeah, Rogan.
I just listened to one the other day.
Rogan's
Actually, I
awesome.
listened to there's this one that was a YouTuber that went into like ancient history, and like he was telling this entire podcast episode about
Uh-huh.
the construction of the pyramids and stuff. It was fascinating. So definitely like that one.
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, yeah, yeah. A few of them.
Got it,
There's
got
a
it.
lot
And
of them. But
since
yeah,
you mentioned
those are
book,
some of
I
my
actually
favorite ones that I
want to
listen to.
plug something which our previous guest told us about, which I didn't know. There is this app called Libby. So if you're a member at your nearest public library, you can just use that library card to log into Libby, and then you can get free audiobooks. So that's amazing. So
Oh,
yes,
okay.
Libby. And I actually just
LIBBY.
found out about it, and I didn't know there was a library like 10 minutes from where I live, and I just got a card and started listening to a book, and I'm like halfway done in just like a day. So yeah,
Amazing,
of
amazing.
course.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's awesome. Keep
Well,
that in mind.
actually,
Yeah,
thank
that's
you so
awesome,
much
man.
for
That's
joining.
awesome.
This was amazing. If you guys are not already connected to Your Life Unfiltered, please be sure to give us a follow on Instagram and on YouTube. Again, as at Your Life Unfiltered. If you enjoyed our conversation with Aashay today, please be sure to also give him a follow. His Instagram handle is at Aashay Shah _18. Again, that's at Aashay Shah _18. Thank you so much for joining. Thanks for the wonderful conversation, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks everyone. Thanks, Sasha.